Hello and welcome everybody. How is everybody doing today? Good. Awesome. Our first speaker is Anna Green, and she is going to present accessible space science, exceptionalities, compliance, and universal design in planetaria.
Thank you. Sorry, I like to pace. So, I work at the James S. McDonald Planetarium in St. Louis. It's part of the St. Louis Science Center. This is our dome, so we don't have seats. Well, we have movable seats, but we started working with accessibility a few years ago. It's my passion, and so I have been taking a look at what's been going on internationally within the planetarium community. And as we all know, I mean, we know what we do is pretty special. We work in a place of joy and wonder, but not everyone can always experience that the way we do. And by using universal design, that's something that's going to enable more people to enjoy space science in our community. So the first thing that we need to do is look at who our audience is. Who enters your planetarium every day? Is your planetarium a public institution? Is it part of a museum? Is your planetarium part of a school district or a university? Do you have pretty much exclusively students? Are you working with the public? Do you have any special schools or organizations in your area? For example, in St. Louis, we have the Missouri School for the Blind, we have Lighthouse for the Blind, we have Delta Gamma for the visually impaired, we have St. Louis Society for the Blind, we have the Central Institute for the Deaf. So we have a lot of specialty schools, plus we have special school district as well. And that's on top of just our public schools and our private schools. So we need to start taking into account who in the area might have needs. And then finally, where are your visitors coming from geographically? So we don't just get visitors from Missouri, we also get a lot of visitors from Illinois since we're right on that border, but we also get visitors from as far down as Arkansas. I just talked to a lovely German couple last week. So we get visitors from all over the world. So that's something to keep in mind. Once your audience is known, educate. We are lifelong learners, and that extends to learning how to work with our public. Using person-first language. So I always like to use the example of I'm blonde. I don't like being defined by the fact that I'm blonde. That bothers me. So I don't like being called, oh, that blonde girl over there. I would prefer to be called, oh, the manager of the planetarium who is blonde. So it's the same thing. If I am talking to my friend who has Asperger's syndrome, or if I'm talking about her, I would refer to her as my friend with Asperger's syndrome. It's not something that defines her. She is her own person. And that's just something to think about. Think about how would you feel if someone defines you by a specific characteristic and not just you as a person. How do you address someone who has an exceptionality? Same way you address anyone else. Hi, how are you doing today? Is there anything that I can help you with? Just let me know if there's any way I can be of assistance to you today. And just let it go from there. If they want assistance, they'll let you know. If they don't, they'll let you know that too. Don't be afraid of making mistakes or messing up. I have a colleague who was working with a group of children who were visually impaired, and he told them, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Look with your eyes, not with your hands. And the room went dead silent, and the kids went, well, what do you want us to do then? And then they all started laughing, and he was bright red, but it was fine. Colloquialisms like, as you see here, don't worry about them. Just keep going, it'll be okay. I want to talk about compliance versus best practice. So compliance is the law. It's what you must do. If you do not meet and comply with ADA in the United States, with 504, you can be sued as an institution. There you go. And that happened actually to the Spy Museum, and you can look that up. Just Google Spy Museum accessibility lawsuit, and you'll get lots of things that pop up. 183 countries worldwide, including plus the European Union, and the United States is included in this, are a part of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So this is a worldwide thing. Just in the United States, we of course have ADA and 504. So this means that there's anti-discrimination laws. You must be compliant. So again, in the United States, it's ADA and 504. if you don't comply, this could bring lawsuits. And honestly, why wouldn't you want to comply? I realize that it can be expensive, especially if you're backloading on this, if you weren't building with compliance in mind, or perhaps accessibility laws have changed since you first built your institution. And there are exceptions for slowly getting up to compliance. Now, best practice includes compliance, but compliance does not always mean best practice. So best practice means that you're probably going to be going above and beyond the minimum required by the law. So this means reaching all different audiences through universal design. Are you using the 5 senses? Are you using not just sight and not just sound, but also touch and, if possible, taste and scent as well? Service animals. So I'm actually really excited. We have a service animal in the room today. So especially within the United States, the ADA states that a service animal is any animal, any guide dog, signal dog that is not a pet that is used to help a person. You cannot bar the animal from entering the institution. That is illegal. You also are not allowed to ask more than, is your animal a service animal? And you can also ask what the animal has been trained to perform. That's kind of a gray area, though, because you cannot ask a person what their exceptionality is. And by asking what the dog has been trained to do, you get into that area. So if you need to ask, is your animal a service animal? If they say yes, leave it at that, let them in.
If you want to ask that extra question, you could find out what school they got their dog from, and it's normally apparent from that.
Okay.
Also, just pointing back, emotional support animals are no longer covered under the GLPA.
And that's excellent to know. Thank you. So our first case that we're going to look at is for visitors who are blind or have low vision. Working with visitors who are blind, they have the most extreme or profound version of the exceptionality. Only 10% cannot perceive light, though. Only 10% of people who are blind cannot perceive light. So that means you can still do demonstrations with flicking lights off and on in the room. You want to talk to them before you do that. You don't want to use a flash, perhaps, and cause an uncomfortable situation. If a visitor has low vision, they may actually be able to see fairly well. Perhaps they're only blind in one eye, but their other eye has some vision left. So you can always ask the visitor, if you're working with them, you know, may I ask you, how much are you able to see? What can I help you with? Is there anything you need enlarged? Something along those lines. There's different kinds of blindness: night blind, day blind, color blind. There's macular degeneration. There's a bunch of different kinds of this exceptionality. And I do realize I'm moving kind of fast just because it's long, so if you have questions, I can always get you the PowerPoint later. There's different kinds of assistive technology that can be used. You can create Braille guides. Never assume that a visitor is totally blind. They may not be Braille readers, but it is good to have Braille on hand as well if you are able to do that. Speak directly to the visitor. You don't need to speak around them, speak to somebody who's with them. Speak directly to the visitor that you're working with, just like you would with anyone else. You may need to be a sighted guide, and this is just simply offering your arm and guiding someone, giving them description as you walk. Hey, we have steps coming up in about maybe 2 feet. There's about 13 steps ahead of you, just giving them these auditory cues. And they'll let you know if you're not doing it right, especially if you're working with a child. I had a child be very blunt with me. Why are you so stiff? Loosen your arm. I'm not going to hurt you. What's wrong with you? Okay, thank you. So children are your best teachers if you have the opportunity to work with a child. And for the case study, this is my own institution. We adapted the Little Star That Could to have the Feeling the Stars program. So basically, this was a grant we received to make this particular star show more accessible for our visitors who are blind and have low vision. So we actually start by orienting our visitors to our planetarium with a tactile cutaway of our dome and our projector, since we can't have them touching the projector. But they can hear it. Our dome is very large. We have a 24-meter dome. They can feel air pressure differences when they walk in the dome. They can hear the sound is different. So we want to make this more comfortable experience for them as they come in. On the left, you can see the tactile stars that we have. Oh boy. And Ken, in front of you, I have one of my prototype tactile stars. And then we also have Twin Vision books. So these have Braille on one side and they have large print on the other. And those go with the show. So now I'm going to talk really fast. Working with visitors who are deaf or hard of hearing, there's several different ways. Like I said, I can get you my PowerPoint. Again, talk to the person, not the interpreter. If you want to get a signer, you are required by law to provide a sign language interpreter if one is requested in advance. We work with our visitor services department on that. We also have assisted listening devices, and these guys are champs. I think we've had these since 1985, and they still function perfectly. You can have rear window captioning. This is in our OmniMax theater, not the planetarium, but it works really well. You can also get glow gloves. With these, I would recommend still having some kind of lighting to see facial expressions with signing. It would be if I just talked like this the whole time and you couldn't see my face, because facial expressions are what give inflection to the voice. So being able to see that face is important. So if you can have some kind of like pin spot or a red lamp to light your interpreter, that will hopefully cut down on the light pollution levels. And I want to get to the case study because this is really cool. Evans and Sutherland in India actually worked to create a version of a show that has a signer in the show. So that in India, and there's all these different languages in India, but Indian Sign Language is universal within India. So they're all able to use this show. And I would be happy to talk to you more later. Unfortunately, I'm sorry I didn't get through this. About visitors on the autism spectrum. A lot of the things that you use tactily may or may not function for them. Can I push into my question time just a little bit? Oh, really? Okay. Just kidding. Well, I do apologize for that. It always goes faster when I rehearse it. So, thank you. And I will get you my PowerPoint if you want it.
Everybody, our next speaker is not here, so I don't think I was very clear with Anna about the time for her paper and questions, so she would like to come up for 2 minutes worth of questions on accessible space science. Come on up.
Thank you. Hi again. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, things to throw at me.
Could you just a quick summary of what you talked about?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I talked about accessibility in planetaria. So I only got through talking about working with visitors who are blind or have low vision and visitors who are deaf or hard of hearing. I wanted to also speak about visitors who are on the autism spectrum or who may have a physical exceptionality. I have lots of business cards, so you can take one. I can send you the 45-page paper I wrote, and I can give you the PowerPoint if you want the Reader's Digest.
So I actually have a question about those on the autism spectrum, which I know you didn't get to. But I know that you have suggested in other talks I've seen you do that it should be done at a non-busy time, so maybe in the morning. So would you recommend adding an extra show that's at a non-busy, like just totally different
Yes.
than normal?
Yes. Either take your first show of the day and make it just that, or add an even earlier show. So my example for visitors with an ASD and autism spectrum disorder. It was actually the planetarium in England, in London. And they had an earlier show before they even opened, so that way nobody was on the street, the families didn't have to deal with the extra stimulus. Everybody who was there had someone in their family who had an autism spectrum disorder. So if a child had a meltdown, everyone in the room understood. Nobody felt pressure, nobody felt worried that everybody was going to be looking funny at them. So that was a big help to them. Exactly, and also in the shows too, if you have music playing in the background of your shows, and that's something like we do pretty much all live shows, so we could take out the music and just speak very soothingly, taking away as much stimuli as possible so that it's a calm, safe environment. I'll talk to you in a minute, because I'm out of time.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Our next presenter is Greg Mancari. He is doing visitor impressions and getting to know your audience. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much. How's everybody doing? Good. So this was a survey done by our director of marketing, Cecilia Orner. I can never pronounce Swedish names, so please forgive me. It was actually done via TripAdvisor. We actually were able to create a collection of data based on searching for planetariums, dome theaters, and digital dome theaters. Thanks, Dantel. He's always helping us out, even when we're giving presentations. So we wrote a white paper based on this. I have a bunch of copies of it. So at the end of the show, if you want a white paper, I'm more than happy to give it to you. We also have them. I don't need this. We also have them at our reviews room. What's that? Being streamed. So one of the things that we find out in the planetarium and museum world, I also work in a museum, and we actually have we have 3 people that are working in our institution that are doing constantly surveying visitors as they come in and out of the building. One of the things that we notice is that there's this gap between what we want as institutions and what the visitor expects. This is on a museum level. And the museum level, they find out that education actually takes a very distant place compared to entertainment. You notice right here, people who come into the Science Center Museum want to be entertained first, educated second. That's where we get the kind of the terminology edutainment, which is taboo with a bunch of people. So here's the sales group that we had. We had 700 reviews, over 1,100 comments from 38 planetariums. You can see my percentages that I have here. It's very important to note these were English comments only. So obviously your English comments coming from Africa, Asia, and South America are far fewer than you would get in Europe and the Americas. Australia, I guess not many people like use TripAdvisor. Not quite sure. So here's kind of our method that we used. We divided things into categories based on what that comment was about. I'm not going to go over all this stuff, but you can see that there's content, comfort, language, activities, service. It's all pretty self-explanatory on what it actually is. But these were the methods that we used. This is how we divided things into categories. And we noticed that 77% of the comments were positive and only 23% negative. That means we're doing a pretty good job. People like coming to digital domes, planetariums, digital dome theaters. They like seeing what we have up there. We still have an added value. So here's the results that we had. You'll notice that the green line is positive comments and the black line is negative comments. And you can see the distribution of percentages of what the comments were about. And the biggest distribution is content. Content is key. Amazingly enough, what you put up on your dome is important. Who would have thought, right? The other very interesting thing to talk about this, and we'll get into this a little bit later, that you'll notice that the negative comments, there's a few where the negative comments like comfort overdo the positive. That's because when people come into the dome and they're comfortable, they don't notice it. But when they're uncomfortable, they come out, they're very upset. And the same thing with technology. When technology works and it looks great, nobody cares. They just expect it to. But when it doesn't work, that's when you get your negative comments. So we're going to look look at a little bit closer into the content. So content inspired the greatest emotion, because all of these reviews are emotional, right? They're not based on fact, because visitors are very emotional beings. They kind of have feelings, and they might not be rational a lot of times. I have a lot of visitor comment cards that will show you that visitors are not rational. So you got to keep that in mind. So here's what the positive comments for content were. Entertaining show. Were you entertaining? And that can cover a lot of things. That can cover things like, was the content entertaining? How was how was the person giving the presentation? If it's a recorded show, how was the narrator? Was it dry? That type of thing. Then we had informative. People like to be informed. So this is a little bit different. This is where we diverge from museums a little bit. Because when people come in, at least into my museum, the planetarium is an add-on. It's not automatically something that you get for free. So when people buy a planetarium ticket, they expect, I want to go to a planetarium show to be able to see something that's informative. But you need to make sure that it's entertaining first, otherwise nobody's going to listen to what you're telling them. Also, we like to keep the comments, most general comments like, love the planetarium field, and fell into a good entertaining show category. A few more additional positive comments were positively surprised. I guess that's good. And topical, so I guess we're an ointment that you can rub on yourself. So here's the negative comments that we noticed when we were looking at this group. Lacking entertaining. Hey, what were we talking about again? Entertaining show? Lack of entertaining. Hey, guess what you should be when you're in a planetarium? Entertaining. Because if you're not, people aren't going to like it. This one is this unmet expectations. It's actually something we're going to look at in a little bit, because expectations and setting the expectations of your visitors through marketing, word of mouth, entry into the museum, signage, all that stuff is really, really important. Some of them saying that there's no educational value. Again, that's actually close to unmet expectations. So if you have like an art piece, how educational is Sonic Vision? Not at all. But you put it in your dome because you like it, or a laser show. Not designed to be educational, right? So they might have not met the expectations. Outdated info, that's our fault if we put out outdated info. A lot of that has to do with pre-recorded content. So if you have an old show that might have brand new stuff came out, adding a little bit of live piece before or after to kind of tell people about that, not a bad idea. And too short. We get that sometimes because we only run 23-minute shows. We pop them in and out. But some of you may have hour-and-a-half long shows that might be too long. But these are the comments that we saw. The comments like, it was so bad we asked for our money back. That's really hurts. But, these are comments that you need when you hear, if you go on TripAdvisor, you go on these things, and you see these bad comments, don't automatically dismiss them as, oh, this person's an idiot, right? Take it into account. Rethink about what you're doing and saying, maybe, is there something that I could have done? If it's like something like the smell of the planetarium was bad while they were doing acetylene welding on the other side of the building, there's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. It's not your fault. So that was negative content comments. Bad presenter, hard to understand, bad visuals, and too long. Too long. Bad presenter and hard to understand kind of go hard hand in hand. If you're kind of monotone, and you speak very slowly, nobody can understand you, and you mumble, but that's a bad presenter, and that's just not getting your point across. You do need a little bit of animation and vocalization. So we're going to get into the informative and educational content. Comments in the informative and educational value content we found in the top 3 most common reviews in positive and negative. So we see this is a basic requirement. Informative and educational value in the planetarium is important. We need to have those in our content. Like I said, people come to a planetarium because it's a planetarium. It's almost like a place of learning. It's not like they're coming to, right? It's almost like we're teaching people things. So that's what kind of we went over here. Now, this is where the negative comments that we hit unmet expectations. The 19% negative comments were unmet expectations. So, like I said, this is your fault. Generally speaking, it's our fault. If we don't meet the expectations, that means we didn't set them before they set foot in the door. We didn't either do the correct marketing, we didn't have the correct signage, we didn't articulate to the audience what we were going to do to begin with. There's lots of options where we can avoid these unmet expectations. So that's something that if anybody takes away from this whole kind of paper, this white paper, this analytics that we do, it's this. Make sure that we set expectations. I've done this in my own theater where we ran a few shows where people didn't know what to expect. And they did poorly because people weren't sure how to take them. Like they didn't know what to do with it because we didn't set the expectation to the visitor when they first showed up, what they were actually going to see. So it's really important, you know, like I went wishing to see the stars and planets, but we went and saw super volcanoes. I mean, you went and saw a show called Super Volcanoes, so you probably should know what you're talking about. But, I mean, yes, but we still need to set that expectation, whether it's your front desk staff or yourself. This is a show about volcanoes. I know it's called Super Volcanoes, but it's a show about volcanoes. So here's the conclusions that we got out of this. Because this is just a gathering of data. We're making anecdotal conclusions on this. Using my experience in the museum industry, I kind of am familiar with some of this stuff. But the quality of content is important. If it sucks, people aren't going to show up. I mean, we kind of all know that, but it needs to be stated over and over again. They appreciate the learning aspect of the planetarium experience and expect astronomy to be on the agenda unless you set the expectation differently. But this is unique because science centers and museums, they want to be entertained, but in the planetarium, they do want to be educated. Still need to be entertaining, but they want to be educated. Clear communication and marketing. And marketing, people get freaked out when they say marketing. You know, it's not a Facebook post. You can't just put a Facebook post and tweet out and expect that to be your marketing. It's constant contact with your visitors, your guests, your members, making sure that you get stuff out there. Go to your local NPR. NPR loves to have planetariums on. I mean, we're giant nerds, and so are they, and they love us. So get out there and actually talk to them and let them know if you have something big coming up, right? And then communication marketing is an important tool for improving the industry as a general because we have these preconceived notions of what planetariums are. You know, oh, it's a guy in the star field that's just going to be talking about the nighttime sky. And then people kind of glaze over it. I mean, we upgraded our dome back in 2003, and I still have people come in and be like, whoa, this is different. Where's the thing that was in the middle? That's been gone for about 12 years. You know, it's that talk about like people don't know what to expect when they come in, and you need to set those expectations, and you need to follow these to make sure that you're relevant. So thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it. If you have any further questions, somebody has white papers here as well, so if anybody wants to grab some white papers before they leave. Oh, you have a minute. Oh. For questions? Yes. Does anybody have any questions? So a lot of the ways that we, it's clear communication. I mean, we're a pretty big institution. We have over 400 employees, over 1,700 volunteers. We have a lot of people in our institution. I realize not everybody here has that. But we have a front desk staff that actually, as somebody's taking the ticket and selling them the show, it's the verbal like, this is a children's show. Okay, I mean, some people, there's just going to be a certain percentage of the population that you just can't help, right? Like, they're just not going to pay attention. But yeah, but 19% is a pretty big number. That's more, you know, that's 1 in 5 people walking through your door. That's bad, right? So we need to make sure that we actually have that unmet expectation, you know, in hitting that. When we put super volcanoes in, we put it in conjunction with our Pompeii exhibit. It was one of the best-selling shows that we did. So it was, but setting an expectation. Hey, here's a show about volcanoes. It's about super volcanoes. You know, that thing. Yes.
Is the white paper available?
I have it right here.
May I have a copy?
You certainly can.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mark.
Yeah, the unmet expectation, but it seems like there are kind of two aspects of that. One is, what kind of show it is, who the audience is. But I wonder if there's something that's more general to the field. That people have this expectation, it's like I hear this all the time, of when they were a child and a 4-year-old planetarium show, and they have no idea of what about it. Like, what can we do as a field to change the expectations?
And that's a conversation I want to start. Because I don't have the answer to that. But this is a white paper to tell you what are the things that are out there. Let's look at that and have a discussion amongst ourselves about how we can actually meet these. All right.
Hello again. This is our next speaker, Renee Kerrigan, and she is going to talk with us about careers in space exploration, the project Free Content.
Hi everyone, good morning. I think almost everybody in here knows me. I'm Renee Kerrigan from the Peoria Riverfront Museum Dome Planetarium. And yes, I'm going to talk about a project we did this summer exploring different types of careers in space exploration. This summer we had a traveling exhibit in our museum. It's a multidisciplinary museum where we get traveling exhibits about 4 times a year. It was called Be the Astronaut by Eureka Exhibits, and it had a whole bunch of video interactive games that took visitors on a journey as an astronaut. So they would plan a mission, they would work on the engineering of the mission, or have to go through some steps and then actually fly to Jupiter, or drive a rover on Mars, or sort of manipulate a space station. And when we were planning our programming that would go along with that, I was really thinking a lot about the importance of role models. Because everybody wants to grow up to be an astronaut, right? I still want to grow up to be an astronaut. But there's a very small percentage of people on the planet who get to go to space. And I wanted to make sure that there was something that talked about other ways that you can be involved in space exploration besides being an astronaut. So role models are really important, and I think we intrinsically know that, but there are some studies that back it up, that if children see somebody, especially someone who looks like them, performing a career or a role, they can much more easily identify themselves in that career in the future. And the lack of female role models in STEM fields, as Paulette was talking in her excellent talk, has likely contributed to the gender gap in science fields. So to help extend this exhibit, we decided to try to put together a kiosk in which we would ask people to record videos about how their jobs contribute to space exploration. When we were planning it, I just came up with a list of types of jobs that I would like to see in it. Astronomers, engineers, writers, media producers, scientists, educators, publicists, some people working in the private space industry. I'm sure we can all imagine even more jobs than this that contribute to space exploration. And I was going to try to identify people in those roles and then ask them to record short videos explaining how their job contributes to space exploration. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for the participants because I'm asking a favor of them. So I just thought it doesn't have to be fancy, just something they record on their phone would be fine with me that I could put together. So I keep saying this was a team effort. It was not just me. I had some people in mind that I wanted to ask. I don't know if Carl would return my emails, but I had him in mind. And these are people I admire, but one of the people I admire who's currently working in the field is Emily Lakdawala. She works for the Planetary Society. Anybody follow her blog? She's awesome. And I just thought, I would really like to have her video. I'm just going to email her. What can she do? Say no? That's the worst. And she said yes. So she recorded a video for us, and she sent my email to a couple of her other friends. And Sarah Hurst from Johns Hopkins University, she's a planetary scientist who works on like the atmosphere of Titan, also recorded a little video for us. So these were the questions that we sent our people we were asking. You can read them here. Basically, what is your job? What do you like about your job? What makes you good at your job? And why do you think space exploration is important? We hoped to get a big response, and we got not a big response, but we did get the 3 I would consider high-quality videos out of this. We put them together in an interactive kiosk. We happen to use Bright Sign players. These are little media players that you can attach to a television. They cost about $250 to $550, and if you buy one, it comes with a software called Bright Author, which allows you to put together some interactive content, either a touch screen or a different version. I'm sure that there are vendors here who can tell you a lot more about it than I can. But this was what the interface looked like. It's very simple to use. And this is our menu, so it was just a touch screen, and people could touch one of the photos and then watch the videos. At any time, you could exit out of the videos and go back to the menu. So the three sort of well-known or more exciting people I would consider, we had a media producer from JPL, Stephen Epstein, who's like the second cousin of our VP of Finance, who made a video for us, Emily Lactuella and Sarah Hurst, and then we have two people locally whose jobs somewhat contribute to space exploration. And this, I think, is helpful so that people know that you don't have to work for NASA or JPL or some place big. You can have a job in your own community that is in a STEM field. So I have some short clips from the videos. The videos were about 3 minutes or so in length, and that would take up my whole paper. So these are just some short clips, and we're going to listen to it out of my computer speakers, so I hope you can hear it.
The most important thing I do in my job as a science writer is to read and to listen to the stories that other people are telling, so that then I can translate them into stories that the rest of the world will understand about how robots are exploring our solar system. I do a lot of writing about different kinds of science, which meant I needed to take a lot of different kinds of science classes, not just geology. I studied chemistry and physics, but science wasn't the end of it either. In order to be a good communicator, you have to be able to speak about your science and also write a great deal about your science. Actually, even if you're a scientist, you need to be able to write really well about your science. So I encourage people who are interested in science to take English classes, history classes, creative writing classes, even theater classes or art, in order to be able to do the kind of creative writing, speaking, and representation of your work that you'll have to do in order to be successful about communicating it to the rest.
So the cueing got off a little bit there, but it's better in the real video. Here's Sarah Hurst.
There are lots of different reasons why space exploration is important. First of all, it's exciting and fun. We get to go out into space and learn about all the different parts of our solar system, and we get to see all kinds of weird things like the Great Red Spot, or dunes made out of organic material on the surface of Titan, the haze layers of Pluto, the large volcanoes on Mars and on Io, and there's lots of different really exciting places to explore in the solar system. So that's one of the reasons why space exploration is important, just because it's interesting and exciting and makes you think about the possibilities. Another reason that space exploration is important is because it's difficult. When we do things that are hard, we have to push the boundaries of engineering, of science, of computer programming, of the way that we communicate, the things that we do. And anytime you do something that's difficult, you have an opportunity to open new horizons, to learn new things, and to develop new technology that can be used right here on Earth, not just in space.
And she recorded hers in her lab. That's her equipment behind her, with her phone. So that one's a little bit less. We had to manipulate it a little bit, but it's still good content, I think. And this is from JPL.
We have so many different missions operating all at once, generating so much data. It can be a real challenge to pass that information on to the public in a way that's both understandable and engaging. That's where a media producer like me comes in. I interview members of the mission teams to learn all about their work and their discoveries. And then, using video editing software, I translate all of that science and engineering into videos that we post to YouTube or Facebook or get played on NASA TV. To do my job well, I rely on a combination of both creative and technical skills. We work in a very exciting and fast-paced environment here. And being able to tell our story in a short amount of time is critical to keeping up with the pace of discovery here at JPL. But honestly, I think my most valuable asset in this job is just my passion for what JPL is doing. Because I'm not a scientist, and I'm not an engineer, but I love space and science and discovery, and learning all about the universe that we live in.
I think that's a good example that you can do science without. Also, he said, I know you said it doesn't have to be fancy, but this is my job. So he made this super fancy video. So this is what the kiosk looked like. It's just a TV. It's a small extension of the exhibit, but we had good feedback from visitors and school groups, and the creators of the traveling exhibit, Eureka Exhibits, were happy to see that extension. They were very excited about it, as was JPL. So I think it was a successful project, and I would be happy to give you the videos. So there are 3 videos that I'd be happy to share with you. I've already put them on a shared drive on Google Drives. So it's completely shared. You can just download it if you have the link. I know this link is ridiculous, so just email me. It's my name, rkerrigan@peoriariverfrontmuseum.org, or give me a call and I'll send them to you. I also think, okay, I'll wait. Everybody ready? Okay, I also think that we could all extend this project. So you can make a touchscreen interactive at your institution. You can get a bright sign if that's something that's available to you. If not, I know there are some open source technologies available. I don't know much about them, but I'm sure you can figure them out. And I think probably how many people here know somebody who works in the space industry, and that you could maybe ask them to record a video. You could use the questions that we established, or you could ask them your own. Reach out and see if they would record a video. And then maybe, I've already made that folder shared, you could upload them to Google Drive, and then we could have a big repository. I have talked to GLPA about putting them on our website. We're thinking about figuring that out. But right now, they're on Google Drive. So I really think that with our collective contacts, we could make this a big project, and maybe we could have free content for all of us. And also, I think it's important that we show children all the types of jobs that they could do, about something they're excited about. You never know what might spark the interest that leads to a career. Like all of us in the planetarium, probably, we had that experience that led us to work in planetariums. So this is the ability to inspire people, and I think inspiration is what we do best.
Since you're the face of space in your community, did you ever think of doing planetarium as one of your careers?
Yeah, they asked me to do one, and I was a little, I didn't. You know, my coworkers, Ann and David, who helped me with this project, said that I should record one. Things got busy and it didn't happen, but I suppose that's also a good idea. We could also record our own videos. Yes.
Please do, because in your community, you might not, one knows you already, but for us, we need good female role models, and your video would help us in our benefit. A question on this here. Maybe it's a dumb question, but we all know that your opening statement, which was seeing a role model that is more like me, I can see myself in that career. Makes it more powerful when you're selling this to an administrator or a project, or maybe administrator seeking outside funding. Did you guys see any pedagogical research on that concept?
I tried to find some research on it, and in my proceedings paper, I have a link to at least one paper. I didn't have enough time, or didn't pursue it enough to find more, but I think that that's important, and maybe Paulette can help.
If anyone is interested in that research, I have links in my paper and also other pictures as well.
I want it, Paulette.